Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So this evening we are continuing with Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. And Haima, what is the name of this chapter again? It's escaped me.
It is called the Atman.
With the
Atman.
Well, that should be easy to remember, but somehow or another it didn't stick.
That's it.
So we'll definitely find out that's what he's talking about, all right? We're well along in the talk. And before we begin, is there any question or comment that anyone would like to make about what we've studied so far or anything else that is of interest or concern to you? All right. I'm going to start back a little bit from where we left off last week, because this is such a key point, and I want to go over it and then see if there are any comments or questions. There is but one soul in the universe, not two. It neither comes nor goes. It is neither born nor dies, nor reincarnates. How can it die? Where can it go? All these heavens, all these earths, all these places are vain imaginations of the mind. I'm going to repeat that. How can it die? Where can it go? All these heavens, all these earths, and all these places are vain imaginations of the mind. They do not exist, never existed in the past, and never will exist in the future. Now that's such a powerful statement of what the Swami is speaking of as fact from his own experience, that is, his own realization in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In June of the year previous to the time that he delivered this talk, in June of 1895, the Swami was in the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi in Thousand Island Park. And so what he's saying is the result of his realization. All these physical places or metaphysical places like heavens are vain imaginations of the mind. They do not exist, never existed in the past, and never will exist in the future. So are there any comments or questions about what the Swami has said? This extremely strong statement of what he is offering to us as reality, capital R.
Brother
Yeah.
Shankara,
Yes, dear.
the mind is also only one, right? The cosmic mind.
The cosmic mind, but the individual mind, which is an appearance, is a reflection in this breathing thing, this stardust spacesuit. And it apparently transmigrates. This is what Krishna says in chapter 2 of the Gita. The subtle body, consisting of the mind, the intellect, and the causal body, consisting all of mental impressions, samskaras and vasanas, apparently take new forms. And the Swami will talk about that in a minute. But the cosmic mind and the soul, those are identical terms, just thought of from a different perspective. Thanks for the question. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, it's like all my life, for me, the truth is what I see, so what I see is my body, this earth, and suddenly, even though, I do get it, but like one side of my mind is rejecting it, saying that, no, it is there. It's true. You exist, like my body exists. This earth exists. You are walking on it. So it's
How can we deny it, Somesh?
yeah.
How can we deny it? Here there appear to be 10 individuals
Yeah.
attending this class this evening.
Mm.
This is the appearance.
Yeah.
The Swami is making the very strong and uncompromising assertion that this is nothing more than a vain imagination of the mind. But we have this imagination because we, as the divine being, want to.
Mm.
We want to experience this manyness. And this is why Vivekananda says in another place, I'm going to slightly paraphrase to get rid of the gender identification. Humankind is the infinite dreamer dreaming finite dreams. This is a dream.
Mm.
Whose dream? Our dream as the Atman, as Brahman. The reason it is so compelling and convincing is that it is Brahman's dream. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is recorded that at some point, the cosmic mind that Swayam just pointed to, the cosmic mind says, I am one, I shall body myself forth as many. Vashishta very carefully explains to Rama in the Yoga Vashishta that nothing ever happened. A dream began, a stage show, a magic show. He says nothing happened, but there began a vibration of consciousness. We are that vibration of consciousness. So there's no sense denying our existence, but we can also hold, and this is the characteristic of the spiritual aspirant, they can hold two thoughts in mind at once. The apparent reality of the senses and the teachings of the scriptures or the great teachers, in which case we were reading that what we are experiencing through our organs of action and our organs of perception, and the mind are vain imaginations, born of the three gunas. Now, all this gets so complicated. The Swami will try to simplify it for us, but it will not be easy to swallow. Any more than any of this is easy for the mind to swallow. It takes years. It's good for us to recall that Sri Ramakrishna's teacher of Advaita Vedanta, of the non-dual path, Totapuri, by his own testimony, it took him 40 years to realize this. And still there was more to learn when he came into the presence of Ramakrishna and stayed with him for those 11 months, when he normally stayed nowhere more than 3 days, the traditional way. He learned from Sri Ramakrishna. Now, how can someone who's realized learn? Well, realization is just the first step in real spiritual life. There is no end to what we may learn in infinitude. So thank you, Somesh. That's just, you're absolutely right. We cannot deny the evidence of our senses. As a matter of fact, Patanjali says, clean up the senses and believe what they say. Then learn how to transcend them.
Yeah. And thank you for putting it like this. That it is it's about being at peace with two different thoughts at the same time. And like you said, there are 11 people here. At the same time, it is all a Maya, for all of us to
Yes.
be here as well. It's imagination.
Yes, indeed it is.
Thank you.
But Maya, as Vivekananda will point out also, but Sri Ramakrishna says Maya or Shakti is also real, is also Brahman. It's just, he says water still, water and waves, same water. So we are the water and waves. And it's Sri Ramakrishna much more closely agrees with Adi Shankaracharya, who doesn't say nothing ever happened. He just said a superimposition. Now that's his expression for a vain imagination of the mind. It's a little kinder way to put it, but it's a superimposition on the reality, as and of course the most familiar metaphor for it is coming across a coil of rope in the semi-darkness, and because of the very natural fear of snakes, seeing that coil of rope as a snake. There was no snake, there is no snake, there never will be any snake, except in your own experience. A superimposition on the reality. And so...
Yeah, and another thing I really liked in Swami Vivekananda's Maya lectures, that the way out of Maya is through the Maya. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so even though this is Maya, but the way out is through this.
Yes, well, there's avidya Maya and vidya Maya. The mind is both our enemy as it practices avidya Maya, and as our friend. It's our friend as it practices vidya Maya. And it may do this. It may do those things in consecutive moments. It's very hard for us to be what is called in the Gita Sthita Prajna, calm and steady. and resolute in our realization, in our knowledge. So, no accusation, no judgment. We're not doing anything wrong by being here and doing this. This is just, as you said, it is Maya, and we are doing our best to practice avidya Maya and find our way out. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
oftentimes it is so comforting to just believe in the
Yes.
teachings, because so many saints and realized souls have repeatedly said the same thing in different ways, and if I haven't experienced it, I can either choose to believe or not believe. I think believing it is more healthy and will lead somewhere rather than choosing not to believe.
Yes, well, as you say, we can do either. The one will lead us to just turn the hamster wheel if we do not believe. And is there anything wrong in that? No, it's just ultimately you don't get anywhere. It's just futile, which the teachers also say. But it isn't anything wrong that one is doing. But as you say, it is comforting and auspicious. I like that word rather than right or wrong. Auspicious. It is auspicious for us to believe. And this is what manana is all about. Taking these teachings into our minds, the ones that the Swami is presenting us with this evening, and comparing them with the way that we habitually think, therefore speak and act. We rehearse our belief in the appearance. We rehearse it daily. So when we begin to rehearse another set of ideas in our minds, rehearse means what? Repeat until we get it by memory, till we know it by heart. That's what rehearse means. We know our appearance story by heart. Oh boy, do we. But when we begin to rehearse, which is what the niyamas are all about in Patanjali, when we begin to rehearse the alternative to our habitual way of being, then we have two competing stories going on at once. They're both stories. The reality is beyond thought and speech, so it can't be a story. But we have two competing stories, one more auspicious than the other. And so we slowly and slowly adopt the more auspicious story, which is spoken of by Swami Sridharananda as divinizing our lives. Rather than being ordinary beings, we become more and more divine in our nature by manifesting that divinity, which is what Swami Vivekananda is calling on us to do. Anything else? All right, we'll go on with the
Yes,
Swami.
may I ask a question before we move on?
Yes, please.
Yes. I was wondering if the idea of the Swami that we are never born, we are never die, in fact, we don't exist, that we're just reflection of the ultimate reality. If there's any way that can be reconciled with the ideas of the French philosopher René Descartes, who said, I think, therefore I am, and that the only thing I can know is that I do exist.
Well,
Can you speak on that?
the Swami said, Descartes got it backwards. He said, I am, therefore I think. So no, it can't be reconciled with Descartes' idea. We can hold both ideas in mind at the same time, and over time see which one seems more auspicious to us. Now, there's nothing wrong with Descartes' idea. I think, therefore I am. But what it does is it puts the mind in the front and says, I am the mind. Because I think, therefore I am. And what the Swami and the other great teachers of this lineage, this tradition, teach is the amness, the reality of being, capital B. That's primary. Consciousness is primary and is not plural. That's one of the principles. Consciousness is primary and is not plural. And it gives rise to the mind, the organs of action, and the organs of perception. This is the understanding. So they can't exactly be reconciled, but they can be held in mind at the same time and see which one leads us farther forward. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay, and I'm very glad you asked the question, because that is actually Sri Krishna 5,000 years ago addresses this in the Gita in chapter 3. He says it really doesn't matter which you think comes first. What happens now in this moment? That's what he says is important. So you can find that in chapter 3, and it's very nicely translated in Swami Prabhavananda's and Christopher Isherwood's translation of the Gita, what Sri Krishna says about that particular point that Descartes addressed. Thank you, Roberto. Anyone else? Anything? All right. The Swami now speaks from the perspective of the reality. I am omnipresent, eternal. I am omnipresent, eternal. Where can I go? Where am I not already? I am reading this book on nature. By nature, he means what we experience through our mind, our organs of action and perception. I am reading this book of nature. Nature is his use of the word nature to mean Maya. I am reading this book of nature or Maya. Page after page, I am finishing and turning over. And one dream of life after another, and one life, I am finishing and turning over page after page, and one dream of life after another comes and goes away. Another page of life is turned over, another dream of life comes and it goes away. Rolling and rolling, and when I have finished my reading, I let it go and stand aside. I throw away the book, and the whole thing is finished. What does the Advaitist preach? He dethrones all the goals that ever existed or ever will exist in the universe and places on that throne the self of man, the Atman, higher than the sun and the moon, higher than the heavens, greater than this great universe itself. Now, if you want to read an evocation of this in modern English, relatively modern English, of just what the Swami said. He, Swami Vivekananda, said of Walt Whitman was the great American sannyasin. And if you wish to read what the implications of this are, read Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, which you can find online. You don't need to buy a book. You can find it online. Walt Whitman, Song of Myself. And of course, he's speaking of the higher self. And it is a beautiful, beautiful rendition of what the Swami talks about by turning over page after page of the book of nature of Maya and finding ultimately only the self there. So, Song of Myself by Walt Whitman. Higher than the sun and the moon, higher than the heavens, greater than this great universe itself. No books, no scriptures, no science can ever imagine the glory of yourself that appears as man. The most glorious God that ever was, the only God that ever existed, exists, or ever will exist. I am to worship, therefore, none but myself. I am to worship, therefore, none but myself. I worship myself, says the Advaitist. To whom shall I bow down? I salute myself. To whom shall I go for help? Who can help me? The infinite being of the universe. These are foolish dreams, hallucinations. Who can be, what is that word?
Ever helped anyone?
Who ever helped anyone?
Yes.
These are foolish dreams, hallucinations. Whoever helped anyone? None. Whatever you see,
Wherever, brothers.
wherever you see a weak man, a dualist, weeping and wailing for help from somewhere above the skies, it is because he does not know that the skies also are in him. He wants help from the skies, and help comes. He wants help from the skies, and the help comes. We see that it comes, but it comes from within himself, and he mistakes it as coming from without. Sometimes a sick man lying on his bed may hear a tap on the door. He gets up and opens it and finds no one there. He goes back to bed, and again he hears a tap. He gets up and opens the door. Nobody is there. At last, he finds that it was his own heartbeat, which he fancied was a knock at the door. This man, after this vain search, after various goals outside himself, completes the circle and comes back to the point from which he started, the human soul, and he finds that the God whom he was searching in him, in hill and dale, he finds that the God whom he was searching for in hill and dale, whom he was seeking in every brook, in every temple, in churches and in heavens, that God whom he was even imagining as sitting in heavens and ruling the world, is his own self. I am he, and he is I. None but I was God, and this life I, and this little I. None but I was God, and this little I never existed. Okay, once again, let's stop and make sure that everyone is at least content that they have received what the Swami has said and can hold that thought, hold those thoughts, at least competitively, with the reality that they know as they came here this evening. Is there any comment or question from anyone?
Could you repeat yourself, Brother Shankara? I didn't hear what you. I don't think I heard what you said.
I said, I just asked for comments or questions based on the idea that we need to have a grasp of what the Swami says, has been saying, and be able to hold that way of thinking and being, at least competitively. No one is asking us to swallow it whole and say, oh, I suddenly accept and believe all this. And well, of course you can't do that. But is there anything about it, anything that you want to ask or say in order to be able to hold that system of thinking that the Swami has been describing about the one, at the very least competitively, with the way of thinking, speaking, and acting that you brought here this evening? Does that get it, Aaron?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I think Swamiji himself was such a perfect example of one who was able to hold both thoughts. Of course, he had actually attained the realization, but he was also so compassionate. I mean, he would cry at the plight of the poor humans, because I think he was so, I don't know how to express it, but he was able to have that compassion because he knew the truth.
Yes, that's part of it. But he also, this is the wonder of being, as a verb, being human. When these great souls take human form, they become liable to all of these things. They become liable to Maya. And so the Swami, at the end of his life, some of you have heard me tell this story before, but it bears listening to again, I believe. Toward the end of his life, and I mean in the last months, in the last year before he passed away on July 4th, 1902, Swami Triyananda was responsible for looking after another one of Sri Ramakrishna's direct disciples. Swami Triyananda was responsible for looking after Swami. And one afternoon, he came to look in on Swami and see how he was doing. And he found him banging his head against the wall until it bled. Banging his head against the wall. Now, this was an emotional Bengali, no doubt. But Turiyananda asked him, Swami, what is troubling you so? And the Swami said, attachment, attachment. And Turiyananda asked him to elaborate. And the Swami told him that he had become so attached to the Hale family. Now, when Swami Vivekananda landed up in Chicago in September of 1893, he ended up getting papers and some money and so on from some people in Boston because he had brought no certification of his status from India with him. But he had lost those papers, his letter of introduction to the Parliament of World Religion, and his money. What happened to them, I don't think he ever explained in any place that can be found. That it may be known in the order, but it isn't known in any writings I've ever found. But in any event, he had lost them. And so he'd been living in a boxcar in the rail yards. And that morning, he walked out and was sitting on a curb, wondering what was to happen to him next. And he had essentially only the clothes on his back, which were, of course, by Chicago standards, very dramatically strange. So a woman who lived in the house behind where he was sitting saw him sitting on the curb, identified his dress as something that might make him a candidate for being a representative at the Parliament of World Religions. And so she came out, her name was Mrs. Hale, and she said, are you a delegate to the Parliament of World Religions? And he said, yes, but I've lost all my papers. I've lost all my money. And instead of just going back in the house and closing the door, she said, oh, come in the house. And so they allowed him to get out of his clothes, take a bath. They washed and ironed his clothes, gave them back to him. And of course, he told them his story. And he called her Mother Church. And Swami Vivekananda became very attached, almost as if they were his own daughters, to the Hale family daughters. They had two. Like all those who are attached to their children, he had aspirations for them. And like most willful children, they went their own way. They didn't do what Swami Vivekananda gently asked of them. And if you want to know what he asked of them, you can read his letters to them. They're in his collected letters. But he became very attached to that family and very attached to those two young women. So this is exactly what Swayam was talking about. The Swami is exemplary not only of the highest, but also of our Maya-created liabilities, such as attachment. And he knew he was going to leave the body. I mean, he knew that. He knew he was going to leave the body soon. So he was anxious and upset enough to bang his head against the wall about this attachment. Does this give us some sense of how we should not beat up on ourselves for being attached? I mean, we may try to persuade ourselves in our own way, as the Swami was doing by beating his head against the wall. But here's the rest of the story. Swami then went and laid down for his nap. And he said, come and wake me up at a certain time. Turiyananda came back at that time to wake him up. And what did he see lying behind Swami Vivekananda's mosquito curtain on the bed? He saw, with his physical eyes, he saw a circle of Shiva Nataraj, 12 of them, about 1.5 to 2 feet tall. A circle of these 12 dancing in a ring on the bed. That's what was there, not Swami Vivekananda's body. Of course, he quietly withdrew. And he came back a time later, and there was Swamiji's body, Swami Vivekananda's body, and he woke him up. So this is what I mean by being able to hold two competing thoughts. Vivekananda was both Shiva Nataraj and Narendranath Datta becomes Swami Vivekananda, prey to the same kind of emotional attachment that we are prey to. So though he's saying what he's saying here, this is what I mean. It's for us to realize it. And as Adi Shankaracharya said in Vivekachudamani in the last 2 chapters, even the realized soul, like Swami Vivekananda, has their prarabdha karma. As long as they remain embodied, they have to be very much on guard so that that one competing system of thought, represented by our prarabdha karma, by Maya, does not overwhelm even realization.
I think that's why spiritual practice every day helps to keep you strong and on your ground and able to discriminate when those moments occur.
Amen, Aaron. So very well and so articulately said. Yes, it has to be done every day. Otherwise, we will not be able to hold on to the two competing thoughts. We will be overwhelmed by, as we know, it isn't just called Maya, it's called Mahamaya. And it is very powerful, very compelling, very convincing. So we have to have recourse to and access to the divinity within, what abides in our hearts, in order to, as Aaron just said so well, remain strong and grounded. Thank you, Aaron. So very well said. Anything else from anyone?
It seems that like God works in mysterious ways. Like most people, if they lost their money and they lost their papers, would certainly be on the brink of despair. And then Mrs. Hale just showed up and said, "Hey, are you a member of the parliament?" I mean, what a great stroke of luck.
Well, it was, yeah, we can say luck, but, it was Swamiji's bright karma. As someone else pointed out, Swayam pointed out, Swamiji was the absolute embodiment of compassion. So of course the universe would direct compassion toward him. The universe that existed within him manifested as Mrs. Hale. Hmm? But he, as a human being, as the divine being human, quite fell in love with the Hale family, the whole Hale family, including Mr. Hale, who was very helpful to him, getting his papers back, supplying him with money, even giving him an office and so on. I mean, they were a wealthy family. It wasn't like it was an imposition on them. But they were compassionate towards Swahananda, but he towards Vivekananda. But he was himself the embodiment of compassion, so of course that's what would be reflected back at him. And what a lesson for us. If we want compassion and mercy from the universe, let us be compassionate and merciful and not judgmental. Swamiji wasn't judging himself when he was beating his head against the wall. He wasn't saying bad Vivekananda. He just knew he was going to have to leave the world soon, and he did not want to leave with any attachments. How are we doing for time? Okay, we have 13 minutes left according to this. Anything else from anyone about any of this? Your reactions to it, your ability to hold the ideal in mind along. The Swamiji is describing the ideal, capital I, ideal. Your ability to hold in mind both this way of thinking, this way of perceiving the reality, and the way that you came with this evening. And all of us understand it will come and go. Our grasp of it will come and go. Okay.
When Swami says things like, I worship myself, I could see where that could ruffle some people's feathers who don't see what he means the higher self. And
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
he caused quite a stir when he said these things.
Well, it would sound like blasphemy.
Exactly.
And but it's not blasphemy. But when Sri Ramakrishna was serving as the worshiper of Kali, and he put a flower on his own head, and not only ate some of the mother's food before it was served to her, but gave some to the cat, because he saw pure consciousness everywhere, including in himself. The other priests, the other Brahmin priests of the Dakshineshwar temple were outraged. And they went to Mathur Babu and said, this man is crazy. He's worshiping himself. He's eating the food intended for the mother. He's even feeding it to the cat. And Mathur said, oh, leave him alone. He knows what he's doing. Because Mathur somehow intuited the truth of who Sri Ramakrishna was. I mean, he actually physically saw it. It wasn't just intuition, it was an experience that the divine gave him. So it sure would look like blasphemy to most people from most other spiritual traditions, even including this one. Thank you, Brahmadas, for bringing that up. Yes. And Swamiji was assailed for it, assailed for teaching these things. Okay. None but I was God, and this little I never existed. Yet how could that perfect God have been deluded? How could that perfect God have been deluded? He never was. How could a perfect God have been dreaming? He never dreamed. Truth never dreams. The very question as to where this illusion arose is absurd. Illusion arises from illusion alone. There will be no illusion as soon as the truth is seen. Illusion always rests upon illusion. It never rests upon God, the truth, the Atman. You are never in illusion. It is illusion that is in you. Ah, let those who have ears to hear. Illusion always rests upon illusion. It never rests upon God, the truth, the Atman. You are never in illusion. It is illusion that is in you, before you. A cloud is here. Another comes and pushes it aside and takes its place. Still another comes and pushes that one away. As before, the eternal blue sky, as before, the eternal blue sky, clouds of various and colors come, remain for a short time, and disappear, leaving it the same eternal blue. Even so are you eternally pure. Even so are you eternally pure, eternally perfect. You are the veritable God of the universe. May there be not, may there, you are the veritable God of the universe. Nay, there are not two, there is but one. It is a mistake to say, you and I, say I. It is I who am eating in millions of mouths. How can I be hungry? This I, who a man working through an infinite number of hands, it is I who am working through an infinite number of hands. How can I be inactive? It is I who am living the life of the whole universe. Where is the death? Where is death for me? I am beyond all life, beyond all death. Where shall I seek for freedom? I am free by my nature. Who can bind me? The God of this universe? The scriptures of the world are but little maps. The scriptures of the world are but little maps, wanting to delineate my glory, who am the only existence of the universe. Then what are these books to me? Thus says the Advaitist, I know the truth, and I know the truth, and be free in a moment. Know the truth. This says the Advaitist, know the truth, and be free in a moment. This is where was Vivekananda a direct path Advaitist, a direct path teacher? Yes. Here it is. This says the Advaitist, know the truth and be free in a moment. All the darkness will then vanish. When man has seen himself as one with the infinite being of the universe, when all separateness has ceased, when all men and women and gods and angels and all animals and plants, the whole universe have been made and have melted into that, and the whole universe have melted into that oneness, then all fear disappears. Can I hurt myself? Can I kill myself? Can I injure myself? Whom to fear? Can you fear yourself? Then will all sorrow disappear. What can cause me sorrow? I am the one existence of the universe. Then all jealousness will disappear. Of whom to be jealous? Of myself? Then all bad feelings disappear. By bad feelings, he means what is also called the knots of the heart. All these things that we hold as something that is wrong, something that has been wrong in one's life. This is what he means by bad feelings, the knots of the heart. Then all bad feelings disappear. Against whom can I have bad feeling? Against myself? There is none in this universe, none in the universe but I. And this is the one way, says the Vedantist, to knowledge. Kill out this differentiation, kill out this superstition that there are many. He who in this world of many sees that one, he who in this mass of inconsistency sees that one self, sentient, I'm sorry. He who in this world sees of many, sees the one. He who in this mass of insentiency sees the one sentient being. He who in this world of shadows catches the reality, unto him belongs eternal peace, unto none else, unto none else. These are the salient points of the 3 steps which Indian religious thought has taken in regard to God. We have seen that it began with the personal, the extra-cosmic God. It went from the external to the internal cosmic body, God immanent in the universe, and ended in identifying the soul itself with that God and making one soul and a unit of all these, and making one soul a unit of all the various manifestations in the universe. This is the last word of the Vedas. It began with dualism, goes through qualified non-dualism, with qualified monism, and ends in perfect monism. We know how very few in this world can come to the last, or even dare believe in it. And fewer still are act according to it, and fewer still act according to it. I'm going to repeat that. We know that very few in this world can come to the last or even dare believe in it, and fewer still dare act according to it. We're just at 9:01. We're going to leave it at that. Is there anything else from anyone about any of this before we close?
Well, Shankara Sumeshwar,
Yes.
was quite hard hitting pieces. But I got one thing I want to share is that when it says illusion, I'm not in illusion, illusion is in me. That means whether, there was one consciousness or like even when there was no duality, even then there was illusion always existed. It's not like created now with this, it always existed. Just that
Precisely.
just in one, there was nothing to elude, like there's nothing to be eluded from, probably.
Yes, it always existed in potential form or manifest form. And what the Vedas refer to as the night of Brahma, there is no manifestation. Everything is potential. And this is the state in which the cosmic mind is in yoga nidra. And it goes on for an incalculably long time between manifestations. And then this cosmic mind awakens from this yoga sleep. And as related in the Chandogya Upanishad, says, I am one, I shall body myself forth as many. And so what was potential, the gunas, Maya, becomes manifest. But this is why Vasishta said, in fact, in reality, capital R reality, nothing ever happened. That's why the Swami says it never did exist, it does not exist now, and will not exist in the future. And why I said, why is this dream so compelling? Because it is Brahman's dream. All of omnipotence is behind this dream. And so this is why the Swami said, there are few who will hear it, fewer still who will believe it, and fewer still who will act according to it. Now, this is not judgment. This is not saying those are bad people and we are good people. No, no, no. He's just saying, arise, awake. Come out of the sleep and into the knowledge. Come out from behind the clouds. But it is very hard. And there's no two ways about it, particularly, as Aaron said, it's hard to do on a daily basis. You have to be doing your spiritual practices every day and reminding yourself of these things every day in order to even hold both thoughts, let alone come to truly believe them, let alone act on them. But it can be done, and it can be done in this lifetime. This is what Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Vivekananda, and Brahmananda tell us. It can be done. Why? Because the divine will get behind it if you start in this direction. Practice just a little, Sri Ramakrishna said, and someone will come forward to help you. But practicing just a little means practicing a little every day. And going into seclusion from time to time and focusing on it for a minimum of 3 days. This is what Sri Ramakrishna says. So just to say something that some of you weren't here to hear in the beginning, today was, so happy birthday, because according to the Gregorian calendar, this is Swami Vivekananda's birthday, January 12th, 1863. But his birthday is celebrated according to the lunar calendar, and that will be celebrated, that lunar birthday will be celebrated with a puja on Sunday, a week from this coming Sunday, on January 23rd. January 23rd. The puja will be done by Aditya Chaturvedi from his own home. Because of the Omicron surge, we're being as careful as possible, but it will be available to you on Zoom. It will be broadcast from his home. He'll just sign on, and the camera will be directed to him. And just as it would be if he was doing from our own shrine here at the chapel, he has a lovely shrine in his own home, as you might imagine. And so he'll be doing Swami Vivekananda's Titi Puja, his birthday puja, beautifully on January 23rd. And then Swami Brahmananda Raja Maharaj, his Gregorian calendar birthday is 9 days from now on January 21st, but it will be celebrated according to the lunar calendar on February the 8th, Sunday. So those are the two birthday pujas that come at this time of year, and then the masters will come sometime in March. I don't remember the date. So any final comments or questions from anyone? This has been a wonderful class, and so many wonderful questions asked, and so many observations made from your own wisdom and experience. This is what it means to study the art of spirituality together. There is only one, and the wisdom comes from each of us. Anything else from anyone?
I have just a quick logistical question, I suppose.
Yes, please.
Is the bookstore still open, or it's closed to the public due to the surge?
If you want to come, Roberto, just let me know and I'll let you in. It's nominally closed, but I'll be happy to let you in. What is it that you wish to buy?
Just to follow along on the readings that
Or
we
in
have.
Jnana Yoga? Yeah, okay. We definitely have copies of Jnana Yoga, yes. So yes, come. Just let me know when you're coming. You can email me through the can somebody put on the chat my cell phone number? And Roberto can call me on my cell phone number. I don't know how to do it myself. My vision isn't up to it. So, but
I would appreciate that.
you can also email me through the website, Roberto.
Okay, thank you.
I am saying your name correctly, right? I have it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Roberto, thank you. Yeah, come and get a copy of Jnana Yoga. Where do you live? Do you live close by?
Okay. Oh, I see here that somebody put your number.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, I live in Atlanta.
Well, good. Okay. Well, it'll be easy for you to come. And you can come anytime this weekend or anytime that it suits you. The talk this weekend, this coming Sunday, the 16th, I guess it is Modern Masters of Advaita, which of course includes Swami Vivekananda, Ramana Maharshi, and Nisargadatta Maharaj, in order of their appearance in the calendar time. Vivekananda, Ramana Maharshi, and Nisargadatta Maharaj. And it's interesting to compare and contrast what they say about this Advaita path and how even in their teachings it evolved over time to where Nisargadatta is the most informal and the most, so to speak, conversational. But then there'll be a surprise guest, and I won't tell you who that is until the 16th, but I will tell you he comes from the world of quantum physics. Modern Masters of Vedanta.
That would be interesting.
Thank you, Rajiv. So Swami Vivekananda, Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and then a surprise guest. So until next time, Om Hari Om. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Abir Moiti. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from this realm of noisy confusion and delusion to thine abode of serenity, silence, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until Saturday, until Saturday, for those of you who wish to join us, we've just begun studying Swami Prabhavananda's translation and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is called How to Know God. We just did start. And since if there are more of us than were there last Saturday, we'll start again at the beginning with the translators forward and go ahead from there. If only just the same people who were there last week come, well, then we'll go forward from where we left off. And then on Sunday, as I said, Modern Masters of Advaita at 11 a.m. The Saturday class is at noon. The Sunday the Sunday talk is at 11 a.m. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears. Until next time, so good to be with you, such a joy. And let us see if we can hold these two competing thoughts in our minds, the ones that we're used to rehearsing, and begin to rehearse this new frame of reference that the Swami is giving us. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.